AI has been talked about since November when they released ChatGPT in
Yes.
the general public. It's been talked about for decades before that. We've gone to some AI conferences. I'm sure you have too. The big concern, and this is probably overstating it, but is AI going to replace how we do market research and name testing? And if so, how? Or if part of it's going to be replaced, how? And if not, where do you not think AI, ML, LLMs, all this other stuff is really going to make an impact? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, wow. How long is your show? 3 hours?
Yeah, yeah.
This is a long topic. First off, as someone who teaches and do research in computer science, and of course funded by a federal agency to do computer science, so my view is probably a little different from the general public. So first off, I don't see AI as a threat at all. And here are my reasons. The AI that has gotten everybody's attention, those are data-intensive AI. I really want to emphasize this. It is data-intensive AI. So there are other kinds of AI that was done years before that really wanted to do reasoning, logic, and all of that without a whole lot of data. Those didn't go anywhere. And that's why you didn't hear about them. Then suddenly we're now hearing about this data-intensive AI. Then what does it depend on? Well, data, lots and lots of data. So what ChatGPT is good at is it can read faster than anyone can. And it actually remembers everything better than everybody can. So in that regard, it is better than any human. And to a degree where it can even appear to do math. But here's how it works. ChatGPT is good at inferring what the next word should be. It can consider a very, very big context. And how it infers is simply this. I've seen that before somewhere in a certain document that I've seen. And I've seen that more than once. So I believe it pretty deeply and put it out there. That's how that works. And if you're really impressed, you should be impressed by a 8-year-old kid who can read everything, remember everything, and regurgitate everything. And you shouldn't be threatened by that 8-year-old. So how it appears to do math, such as say 5 plus 3 equals 8, right? So it's because it has seen it in some documents before. Now go to ChatGPT and try the following. Try 34,511.375 plus 2. It cannot do it. Because in that case, I don't think it has seen that in any document in the past. So due to that reason, then if you look at market research, so if you are needing to read a lot of documents, in that case, ChatGPT is probably pretty good. So, but I really want to say for a researcher, this is almost like you got an intern who has this 8-year-old ability to memorize everything. The thinking part is still up to you, and choosing what perspective matters the most is up to you. So I don't see a threat there. I see a productivity boost, right? In name testing, I really want to say I don't see AI replacing name testing at all. Because if it's a new name, the world has not seen it before, or not in the context, in the business context you're talking about. So there's nothing to read, nothing to memorize. ChatGPT can't tell you that, hey, I've seen this before. Now, in that case, ChatGPT can do one more thing that the general public would call hallucination. Because I think I've seen something else that's close enough and I can piece it together, looks good enough to me, right? So in that case, that's where the hallucination comes from. But it's not like there is a Dr. Evil behind trying to piece things together. It's all because I've not seen it before. So name testing, if it's all new and it's on the leading edge, there's no way data-intensive AI can help. There's no data.
We have seen that in a lot of ways. So if it's a traditional industry, right, where they're like, let's say banking, and there are a ton of banks out there, and there has not necessarily been a lot of innovation, at least up until fairly recently. And we use ChatGPT to, with the right prompt engineering, it'll come back with names that sound good for what's been out there, right? They're familiar. They're sort of, yeah, that sounds like a bank name. But as soon as you start introducing, because there's a lot of data, right? There's a lot of banks, a lot of names out
Yep.
there, and so it's easy to infer that. But as soon
Yeah.
as you say, well, this is a different kind of bank, this is a bank that has an ITM, not an ATM. Well, there's some question: does a chat GPT have enough data even about what an ITM is versus an ATM to even know what you're
Yeah.
talking about, right?
Yeah.
And then it also it's a hybrid model, right? So it's not just a standalone ITM. We're going to have a bunch of these ITMs, these interactive technology terminals where you can sort of do a lot of the banking with the help of tech. We're also going to have somebody that's live, that's on site, that's able to help you use that tool.
Yeah.
So it's this hybrid of, well, we're going to have this new kind of branch that's mostly tech driven, but there's also real life people there to help you. There's no way in the world we've seen, we've tried, they can't come up with anything that's exciting and new. It just comes back with a lot of the same stuff. And of course, a lot of
Yeah.
the same stuff is not only boring and is not
Yeah.
only on brand or on message, but it
Yeah.
has all kinds of trademark problems because it sounds like everything else that's already been tried over and over and over again.
Every university has a AI task force right now
Okay.
because everyone is scared to death by essays now being produced in seconds, right? So I've been part of that conversation too. But one thing that's really interesting is sometimes when faculty get frustrated, we joke with each other. For example, to say, you see, ChatGPT can replace one thing really, really well. That is mediocre writing.
Yes.
So if you want something average, something normal looking, something that fills the space, ChatGPT is really, really good. But if you want anything original, I just don't see it. Don't
That's
see
a
it.
great comment.
Yeah, so if you have a assignment for students where you demand some originality, where you think you've taught things something original and they can do it, if the results come back is so mediocre, you can actually tell. You don't even need to send it into a cheat checker. In names, especially with the kind of work that you guys do, I really think those are original, compelling, sometimes too thought-provoking, where I want to react to it saying, hey, Mike, what is that? Right? But nothing that's like the normal thing out there. So I guess just I have to concede a little bit. Mediocre name and all of the business operation around that may be doable by ChatGPT, maybe, right? But if you're on good, original, compelling things, maybe whatever ChatGPT says, don't do.
Okay. So I have a question that I think I know you're going to answer to, but it was the subject of much conversation at one of the last market research conferences I attended. And that is the synthetic respondent, right? That there is a lot of data about, individuals and maybe how they react in certain situations. And so the presentation was around, you can do a study, a name testing study or any other kind of name testing study. But instead of using real live people, you sort of specify the demographics or the psychographics, like, hey, I need, 500 gals between 18 and 35 making this much money with 3 kids, and they live at home. They don't have, whatever those parameters are. And it supposedly is going to be able to evaluate as if they were real people and come back not just with the quant data, but with the open-end verbatims, right? The actual reasoning, the rationale.
Yeah.
Now, I don't see how that really is going to work, but I didn't know if you had a point of view on that. What is your thinking about in the future? Do we really think you're going to be able to conduct a study with a robot or a synthetic respondent as opposed to a real human being?
Well, so not speaking as a computer science person, just speaking as a person, I would say over so many years, centuries, humanizing has been a good thing, right? So on that notion, the idea of creating synthetic respondents so that we don't have to have humans anymore, I'm just philosophically against it, right? And then as a computer science person, let me say this: if it's a use case that is so well understood. There's so much data behind it. Yes, we can build a software agent that can learn from all of that and be really, really good. And certain situation actually needs this, like self-driving car. And that's exactly that. And there are other situations where, for example, right now, there are AI agents that can diagnose EEG very well. There are AI agents that can diagnose a tumor really, really well. And those are all great things, because in that case, it's a specific enough task, and the machine is indeed better than the human. But to build a bunch of robots that pretend that the use case that you have is so well understood to every bit of nuance, I think that's scientifically, too far a stretch, and I want to stay on, the academic language side, but I think it's stretching the fact and stretching the capability.
I think that's a great comment. I mean, we've done some testing, right, where we actually will try ChatGPT or a Bard or whatever, and then we'll test it the real way, right, with real people or with hard data. And what scares us to death still is that hallucination factor that you mentioned, that you have to know enough about your domain, your subject matter, and be expert enough in it to ascertain when what you're getting from AI is helpful and is going to complement and is probably pretty close to the truth, like a tumor that's a certain size for a certain age segment or whatever, versus something that's just fabricated. And we've seen some fabrication. It sounds great. It sounds like, oh yeah, this root means this awful thing in this culture, in this language. And you go out and you check it, and it doesn't mean that at all. People that have lived in that culture, that speak that language, have no clue where. And so I think it's going to be helpful in those areas where you have the expertise and knowledge to really vet the answer and use it the right way as a complement and a supplement. But I do think that in those domains where, you can't check it, it's like move forward at your own risk, right? There's big danger sign with the skull and crossbones. Don't go into that swamp, because you'll never get out
right
alive.
now, the research that we're doing are aiming to build AI agents that are assisting human on particular tasks. Those methods are really task oriented. Now, let me tell you why that approach will never translate to human side. It's because humans are social beings. The motives within humans are social related. You can say it's your private thought, but it is for social reason. And if we really think about it and self-check, that is the case. And to such a point where if we say our social identity is how we define ourselves, then it's not just a relationship, a motive. It is how we define ourselves then in that case, unless you truly understand the social surroundings of the testing subject, I really want to say you should not assume there is any data to help you understand how they actually think. Knowing their age and gender means nothing. They are social beings to begin with. So I really believe the name testing stuff you guys are doing are the ones that are, that are, I'm gonna say, the gold standard. I don't want to say there will be never anything better, right? But I see you guys as the gold standard right now.
Well, and it's tough to mimic that real world, right? I mean, we try to show a stimulus, like let's say it's a physical product. Well, we feel pretty strongly you want to try to present that stimulus in as real world a setting as possible. So you drop the name on the package with minimum text or words that you require the respondent to read, because they're not going to read it in a real world situation anyway, or a video, or whatever that stimulus is, to try to say, look, no name is ever out of context. Even in conversation, there's some context that wraps around that name and provides, some idea as to what you're talking about, what the social context is, what the product or service offering is. And you cannot ignore that. And I think that's going forward going to become, even more important. And so talk about going forward. Mapprio, and you as the founder of Mapprio, you've probably got some plans for how that platform's going to evolve. I would just be interested in, anything else you want to talk to us about why you built Mapprio, and you've shared some of that already, but perhaps more importantly for our listeners, where you see the future, right? And where you want to take market research and the kinds of things that you're doing, to that next level or that next couple levels. Any thoughts or any vision you can share with us without revealing anything that's proprietary?
Oh, well, actually, Mike, in this case, I want to say working with you, working with industry leaders like you actually taught me how a lot of things work. So I want to thank you for that. Overall vision, here's one thing I can say, and I think many people will agree with me. Data itself is relatively new in human civilization. For many, many years, we thought knowledge are, embodied in books, right? Data itself is an embodiment of fill in the blank. You can say insights, you can say knowledge, you can say power, or you can even put a dollar sign there. However, the ability to work with data is not widespread, right? And so in this case, a question that we often see people ask is, do you think I've gotten everything out of the data already? And our answer usually is, no, you're just scratching surfaces.
Yeah.
So this interesting dynamics leads us to see the following as a huge opportunity. That is, there are plenty of things that you can do with data you're not doing because you don't have time. And not just you don't have expertise, because there's so many self-learning things out there now. If you want to pick up the skill, you can, right? So I want to say lack of time is the key. Due to lack of time, you actually don't do those important things with the data. Hence, you don't get to see all of the everything the data can offer. Doing micro-segmenting happens to be one great example of that. So one vision that we have is to create as much tools as we can to put all of these values that can be extracted from data into our users' hands. Things that they couldn't do just because they didn't have time, not because they didn't know they're valuable. So due to that, we have created a suite of data products, and you guys have been using a lot of those. I've heard good things from you guys. Thank you. And then so we build action priorities grid, and we build complete profile, and we want to build more. So that's the overall vision, and that's what the mission that Mapprio is on.
Awesome. So if one of our listeners wanted to find out more about you and Mapprio and where you're going and how they might be able to take advantage of your platform, where would you like for them to go? How do they get a hold of you?
The easiest is LinkedIn. I have, due to many reasons, spent a lot of time on LinkedIn, and now I'm a little addicted. I'm an addict. So the easiest is on LinkedIn. And also, full disclosure, my name is like a John Smith in English. So there are many, many Jian Huangs out there in this world. So I'm the one that's at University of Tennessee. So that's pretty easy to find. And also go to Mapprio website. That's an easy thing. But I'd love to connect with people, learn from our users. And one thing I realized is I really understand data, but until you understand the context of how data is collected and how data are used, even I don't know how to extract the full value of the data. So meeting you, Mike, meeting Kay has been very valuable to me. So if I can connect with more people on LinkedIn, I'd love to.
And that's great. And even though you're a professor at the University of Tennessee and not
Don't
the
hold that
University of
against me.
Texas here in Austin, we're glad that we have this relationship. So just for our listeners, the website is Mapprio, M-A-P-P, two P's, Mapprio.com. And Jan, could you just spell your name for anyone that wants to try to find you so they've got the spelling correctly?
Okay, so it's just about Mapprio. Mapprio, the name comes from mapping priorities. That's how the name came about. So
Cool.
map priorities, Mapprio. My name is Jian Huang, Jian. On certain days, it could sound like a certain alcohol drink. Last name is Huang, Huang. And I'm not related to the CEO of NVIDIA.
Oh, too bad.
Not at all.
No
not
stock
at all.
options there.
Very, very far. 500 years ago, the family may cross the branch a little bit. Yeah, but not related.
Okay. Well, Jan, thank you so much for your time today. Great insights, great discussion. Really appreciate it. Wish you the best of success and have a great weekend.
Yeah, wish you guys the best too. Thank you for having me.